All right, hey, we are on episode 4, Argent Alpha Unscripted. Brock, Clint, and I just had our 10X triad. It's a mastermind meeting we have every week. Probably some episode we'll talk about that because we've gotten a ton of value from starting that thing, I think 10 months ago, and it's been awesome. But today, I want to talk to you about a concept we developed in Argent Alpha called the 4-out concept. And we'll give you a little idea of what inspired it. A few weeks ago, I think we were talking about this whole idea of readiness and how in the military and high-level athletes, they never drop below 80% of their peak. They stay at 80% and then they perform to peak at an event. So Dan Zeman is a guy who is a well-known exercise physiologist who spoke at one of our events. And Greg LeMond was one of the guys he coaches. And LeMond always wanted to be ready for 2 events. Can't remember the first one, but the second one was the Tour de France, and he won that.
Trials.
Was it trials? Yeah. So wanted to be ready for those 2 events. So he's like, I don't need to be peaking year round. And Zeman's whole point was, even if you wanted to be, you couldn't maintain 100%.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I started thinking about well, how else could we apply this? And we landed on a concept called 4-out. And the whole idea is, what can you be 4-out from? And we started with 4 minutes out, 4 hours out, 4 days out, 4 weeks out, 4 months out. And that whole conversation and ideation led to a model that is an action model. So it helps you get started now. What can I do in 4 minutes? What kind of decision can I make? What sort of micro habit could I start? Where could I start making a commitment? So that's an action model. There's a planning model. So start with 4 months out and work your way backwards, reverse engineer. So begin with the end in mind, work your way back to right now and what I can do in this next couple of minutes. And then a readiness standard. So this is more about anti-drift, and the self-check is how can I stay, basically, if you thought about it, 4 weeks or a month or 4 months, pick a time frame, always ready to do a competition. And we talked about this in a meeting yesterday. If you're 4 months out, you could be ready for a marathon, a Tough Mudder, rim to rim, biking across your state, almost anything you can be ready for in 4 months. So that's a little bit of the framework. But I want to kick it off to Brock and Clint. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you guys think about this whole idea of readiness and staying within striking distance of performing at your peak?
First thing that comes to mind is just it's kind of a forcing function in getting you started. You don't have to have everything polished or ready to go or perfect before you launch. It's just like it creates momentum, created like that, gets that inertia moving, and then from there, 4 minutes into 4 hours, 4 weeks, 4 months, you could build off of each one of those, without having to have everything completely polished. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, for me, I remember the first time I heard this concept a few years ago, and it was 2 weeks out. It was from Don Saladino, the fitness trainer to the stars and things like that. And I guess he always has his clients 2 weeks out from a photo shoot. So wherever you're at in your fitness journey or how you look, you're always 2 weeks out.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of stuck with me. Like, hey, maybe our nutrition is, we call it drifting. Maybe you drift just a touch, but you're always within 2 weeks, So that was my first introduction to something like this. But I like the 4 minutes right now. What does that look like taking action? Is that like pushing the button to join something or sign up for that? What do you see in that, Jag?
Well, I think to me, it's a forcing function to get you out of this orbiting around a concept without any sort of decision making in place. So 4 minutes could be like, I'm going to just buy the book. 4 minutes, I'm going to start reading the book. 4 minutes, I'm going to write a summary of the chapter I wrote. It's like some sort of like hyper constraint to force some kind of action. And I don't even think the action necessarily matters as much as the fact of taking an action.
Yeah, it's so important. We know action is the first step for anything. So just taking that action in 4 minutes. That's
exactly.
Good.
Yeah. So it's not like it's not like, oh, in 4 minutes I asked this woman to marry me. No, that's probably not the appropriate use of the 4 minute constraint. But it might be, do I see this happening eventually or not? Or it might be, so I think you got to use some judgment on this. But the whole idea is, if you're sitting here, the guy thinking about should I join Argent Alpha? Should I join a gym? Should I start training for something? Should I start the business? You can sit there again, I did this. I spent a year thinking about, I didn't have the words Argent Alpha, but thinking about this community, and it was fun. It was fun just daydreaming about it and writing, dreaming. And finally, just like, I think my wife said something, something about this, when's this hobby when is it gonna result in something? It's like, all right, sometimes you need the reality check. So that's what I think. It's like, it can get you out of being stuck on something.
That reminds me, the 4 minutes reminds me of, and I don't know who came up with this concept, but just the 30 seconds of bravery. When you said asking the girl to marry you or whatever it is, but it just takes 30 seconds of just extreme bravery to get it out. And that's kind of what this 4 minutes is. Make the decision, take a step.
Heard something from one of my favorite speakers, Craig Groeschel. He's got a leadership podcast out there. He spoke about it today. One of his points was kind of in the same light of, with the amount of information that's out there, I mean, you could lock yourself up for days, weeks, months, years without doing anything. Just getting in that over analyzing sense. That 4 minutes, just like it puts you into action mode. I love that piece of it. Instead of I'll go, let me see, I could probably have it ready in 4 weeks. Yep, I'll have it ready in 4. Well, no, what could you do in 4 hours, or what can you even do in 4 minutes? Like, I love how it just creates that momentum.
Yeah, the other thing I think is great about this framework, and this is probably a function of many frameworks, is when you create constraints, you get action. Just like when Twitter came out, when they had a character limit, you had to be very selective in the words you use to get your message across. So that constraint bred creativity. And it reminds me, I was at a Tony Robbins seminar in, I think it was 2011, so it's nearly 15 years ago. It was a 2-day thing, and if any of you have been to a Tony Robbins seminar, it's high energy, it's exhausting. I think we went probably 16 hours, 2 days in a row. And I remember that. The other thing I remember specifically is he said resources and resourcefulness. He said everybody wants resources, but it's all about resourcefulness. And that's why he was talking in this case about startups who are resource constrained, so they have to be more resourceful. And I think that's oftentimes what you find in big companies. They're resource rich, but they're not creative. And they typically grow at that point by acquisition, not by creating the own innovation internally anymore. They have to go buy it. And I think in our personal lives, getting resourceful is super important, because a lot of our people listening to this podcast, all of our members, they have the resources. And it's really ends up being about resourcefulness. And I think that's the other thing I love about this model is it forces you to become resourceful.
That reminds me, and we were just talking about this a little bit earlier, the 4 minutes taking action. It's just like, getting your shoe when you want to go train, putting your shoes on and just starting, you know what I mean? And you get more resourceful. We were talking about it in another application, but once you start, it starts to flow. The resources come, and so that's what's cool about the action in 4 minutes.
I'll get started when I have business cards, or when my website's up, or when I have an app. It's like, how about you get a couple clients, work with them, then get resourceful, and then build all that other stuff, because then it creates action and get going.
Okay, so that's a perfect opening to get into one of our favorite models, the be, do, have model. So I'm gonna explain the opposite of it, what a lot of people do, and that's the have, do, be. Once I have X, then I'm going to do the thing, and then I'll become that person. It's the exact opposite, because it never happens. The reverse is what we recommend. Start being the guy who does that stuff, then do the things that they do, and you'll have what they have. Mm-hmm. You got to, I mean, some people don't like this phrase of fake it till you make it, but there's a little bit of start being the guy today. Start doing the work. But if you're waiting, guess what? We hear this has become a cliche. No one's coming to save you. Mm-hmm. But it's so true. It's like nobody's going to write that outbound email or make those phone calls for you, or make those nutrition decisions for you. You have to go out and be that guy. And that's the easiest first step, is start being the guy you want to become. Model that behavior.
One of the real world applications of this within Argent Alpha my mind as you're saying that, Jay, goes to the A3 standards. We have guys come in there that have been doing Argent Alpha and doing the standards for months, if not a year or so, and then you get a couple guys that are new and it's their first time. They're just like, and they're right along with the people that have been doing this for 6 months, 8 months, 10, whatever, and they're just like, oh my gosh, I can't wait till I'm like that guy. That's my thing. And then you get them there on month 2, they're way better. Month 3, they're starting to see, okay, this is really possible. Month 4, now they're that guy for a brand new guy coming into the group. It's just like it's constant. That trajectory, and they could see it, and that's what I appreciate about the monthly check-ins is that, a month you can make quite a bit of happen in a month, but then you get 2 months, 3 months, and it's like, I remember just 3 months ago, and I didn't think this was possible. Now I'm that, and now I'm the guide or the inspiration for some of these newer folks when I was looking up to him as the guide. It's really cool.
Two
Yeah.
thoughts are coming to my mind right now with just the be do have model. First of all is imposter syndrome, right? That's what stops a lot of guys when they come in. I can't be that guy. I feel like an imposter. And then the second concept with that is vulnerability, which we were just talking about earlier. Like these things have to come into play for you to be that person, and move forward. Perfect example. What Brock's talking about too is the wall sit, right? And it's such a great analogy. Everybody comes in, a 1 minute wall sit is killer if you haven't done it in ever or 25 years. Pretty soon everybody's doing a 5 minute wall sit, So
Yeah. Hey, one thing I wonder if we should embrace like the imposter syndrome. Like, yeah, absolutely. Become the imposter. It's the first step towards becoming that guy. Like,
yeah.
because we all, I mean, we've talked about this. I mean, none of us have been qualified to do what we do, yet here we are. We're doing it right now. Like, should we have a podcast? I don't know, but we're doing it. So
Yeah.
I think you just got to get out there and just be that guy. And so to give you an example, I've changed my thinking on this. So I'm going to go back 5 years ago. If I saw an overweight guy or gal out running, I would have been more judgmental and saying like, well, what good is that going to do? Now I'm going like, no. What if that guy's being the person he's going to be? He's like, he envisions himself as a runner, so he's out runner. His body hasn't caught up yet, but it will. We don't know what else is going on there. So I've switched my frame of mind on this too. I'm gonna assume goodwill. I'm gonna assume that guy is executing the B part. He's being that guy. So I mean, we recommend not go out and do chronic cardio. We'd say get in the weight room, build muscle mass. Incorporate cardio into your training through circuit training or that sort of thing. But that's not even the point. The point is like, just go start being that guy. And I don't know if you guys have similar examples of where you've, again, either framed it up wrong and then switch your thinking on it, or seen examples of guys like just starting messy, to step into that B role right out of the gate.
Well, as a 39-year-old working with a bunch of 50, 60-year-old guys that are super successful, I mean, they're the guys that are my role models. But imposter syndrome, starting working with this group almost 3 years ago, was very high, and then now being able to, I remember when the transition happened of just like having guys that, seemingly had it all together in my mind, coming to me, asking me like, I know who I am. Like, who the heck am I? Like, and they're coming to me asking for something. Now it's just like being able to, well, no, here's what you can expect because I've seen it so many other times and just kind of, but it was a massive hurdle for me to jump over on that imposter syndrome. But you just have to do it, and you have to be that person, got to do it, and then you can have it. And now it's just like being able to frame up for a new guy coming in, here's what you can have in 3 months, here's what you can have in 6 months, here's what a year looks like, and say it with confidence and have them be like, okay. And they step in, they see the conviction, they do it, and they're like, oh my gosh, he was right. So just because you've seen it so many times, but until you have that experience, it's just a little different.
Yeah, I agree. Looks like we lost Clint temporarily. One of the things I want to talk about is Parkinson's law. And so what Parkinson's law is, work expands to the time available. So, if Brock and I were working on something and I said, hey, Brock, I'll give you 6 weeks to get it done, it probably would take 6 weeks. If I said 6 days, Brock's going to figure out how to get it done in 6 days. If I said 6 hours, he's going to get done 6 hours. And so we used to do this in a prior company where I would intentionally set extremely time constraint objectives just to see like what would be the minimum effective dose we could get out of that. And it always worked because it goes back to that people had to get resourceful because it wasn't about resources at that point. But I don't know, Brock, have you seen that in your business or working with clients, just this whole idea of like time is a really important thing and you don't want to be crazy with it. Like there is a certain minimal amount of time for certain things to get done, but usually we overestimate how much time something's going to take, or we get too excited and we get frustrated too early. What do you think about that?
Oh my gosh, I have countless examples of it, and it comes down to just one, committing to whatever it is that you're doing. If it's like, okay, I'm going to lose 20 pounds in 6 months. Okay, well, what if we did that in, 6 weeks you could do that. It'd be pretty, that might not be a good example, but people will give themselves that big long leeway so that they don't have to commit, or they build in a little buffer for if it fails or something. But you condense that down, then you have to be like, okay, well, the only way I'm going to do this is if I'm really, really consistent and that I have to follow through on my commitment, and so like I've seen it with people wanting to get pull-ups, people working through injuries, being able to, whether it's a body composition or adding muscle or whatever it is, so many times, but it comes down to commitment, consistency, and other things, but those are two of the main pieces I see.
Clint, where you popped out, we were talking about Parkinson's law, work expands to the time available, and how,
Yeah.
if we say 6 months, 6 weeks, sometimes 6 hours, you can almost get something done that could have taken 6 months. And I go back to startups versus large companies. But that was the context. And where my head went, like, let's just talk about the weight loss thing for a second. One, how you frame it is super important. So if you frame this as, let's just say a guy wants to lose 20 pounds by December 31st. And he frames that as it's going to be a challenge. Like already he's sacked himself. He's lost 10 yards. Versus just don't even give an adjective. It's not a challenge. It's not going to be a layup. It's an objective. And then let's just look at some science. 2 pounds of weight loss, and we're going to call it fat loss because we don't want to lose muscle, per week is, it's on the aggressive side probably, but it's very doable, especially for someone with a higher body fat percent. But let's just put it at 1 pound. 1 pound a week. That is a layup if you're consistent, like Brock said. And so that would take you about 20 weeks. And so you'd look at it and go, okay, if it's August and December, that's a little less than 20 weeks, pretty darn close. So that's pretty realistic. And so when you start actually adding in a little bit of science and then add in a little bit of like how you're framing it, all of a sudden you're just going to get to more of an objective sort of range of what's possible in weight loss. Because the reality is in a 6 month time frame, whether it takes you 3 months or 4 months or 5 months, it doesn't really matter. You got there. And so I think a lot of guys, they overestimate what they can do in the short term and they underestimate what they're capable of doing in the long term, and then they get frustrated. And I think that's a long way of saying play the long game, stay consistent, and you'll be amazed at what can happen. And so
with this, Brock cracked me up last week when he talked about mobility being his love language. And I think my love language is decision, right? Like, and I say that a lot. Like it all boils down to making a decision and sticking to that. What's your personal integrity on that? Everything you just said boils down to that on a pin to me.
Have you truly decided? Are you
Yeah.
really committed to this? Is this really the choice that you want to make? Yeah.
Yeah, and we've had a number of guys who are, I'd say, engaged Argent Alpha members. They're doing a lot of the tactics and the work, yet their body composition maybe has stalled. And then when we ask them, like, well, have you made the decision to get to 15% body fat? And if you don't get a yes, and you almost never do, you get a long sort of a roundabout way of they haven't made the decision. And so then it's what we're learning is like, well, 15% is the objective, but the focus is on the next 2%. So if this was a marathon, you're not focusing on 26 miles, you're focusing on the next mile marker. And
Right.
then get that, win it, celebrate it, get back to work. And so I think anybody listening to this, it comes back to, do you have an objective in mind? Have you made the decision to go get it? Do you have a plan to go and execute it? And then do you have feedback mechanisms to tell you if you're on track or off track? And that's the Alpha Triad in a nutshell. And so
I think we see a lot of different variation of that, which is good. Everybody's different. They've got their own, personality they go, but the be do have, we see people coming in and they're just being that. And then as time goes on, you see the decision made, and that's when it happens. So there's varying degrees of that decision making.
yeah, and there's still benefits they're reaping, progress they're
Yeah.
making.
Yeah.
But ultimately, our objective is the reason we think 15% body fat is so important is you reduce the risk of every single cause of mortality. You perform at a higher level, brain fog is lifted, visceral fat drops, biological age reverse. There's literally no downside to being that. And the counter is give me all the benefits of being fat and weak. And there just aren't any. And so I want to bring this back to the 4-out model. So we talked about it's an action model. So in 4 minutes, what can you make a decision to get started on? It's a planning model. So begin with the end in mind. Start with 4 months out, work your way backwards to today. And it's a readiness model. How can I need to stay within striking distance of peak performance, and what does that look like for me? And that's always going to be an individual choice and decision. But I want to share, we got a few minutes left. I'm applying this to myself for pull-ups. And reason is earlier in the year, I had a valley fever thing that took me out of the gym for a while. Then I had a little bit of a shoulder thing. And I went and tested my pull-ups and they dropped. My max effort was probably my best ever strict was like 17. And I was down to like 11 or 12. It's like dramatic drop. And so I used ChatGPT as my thought partner, put together a plan, and I literally used this 4-out model. So 4 months out is December 31st. And I put together a plan. I did a test. I've got a 3 days a week planning schedule. I've got a test date on the calendar for September 20th. That's 1 month in. And so I'm applying this stuff real life. And man, when you do this, it's motivating because all of a sudden, like, I don't know if I'm going to get into my target or not, but I'm going to be a hell of a lot better at pull-ups on December 31st than I am today. And so it's not about necessarily the number; it's the progress I'm going to make over that time. And who knows? Maybe I'll crush it. I'm not worried about that. It's just I'm looking forward to the process. Is my point on this.
Yeah.
And what this 4-out model helps give you is a process to go out and achieve things. And so, Brock, I don't know if you have anything right now you're applying this to, or Clint, you're applying this to, but I know you guys have done things like this in the past. Which one of the models, action, planning, or readiness, is like something your head's drawn to, like right now, personally?
Action is guys within they come into the gym specifically. And the first thing we do is we go through a movement screen, and then we find some of those things that they aren't moving well on, and put action into. Here's what you could say if you spent 4 minutes a day. What you would see, all the way up to 4 months is just like you would transform through just about any impingement, any kind of limitation, as long as it's not structural. It would be you'd be a whole new person, and all of a sudden, that thing that is hindering you, that's holding you back, is now somewhat become your superpower. And the amount of confidence and conviction that it gives you is just incredible. And I have probably hundreds of examples of that, for sure, many dozens, even within this group of things I've watched guys just like start with 4 minutes or less. Like, what is 4 minutes of mobility going to do? Okay, it really can compound over time, but it's that action piece that really resonates with me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. I think action resonates with me too. In fact, I'm probably more action than not, I'm probably lack on the planning side, but I don't have anything specifically right now. It was the Seal Fit event, which we talked about a few weeks ago. So immediate action, when JC called me, it was an immediate yes. And then I just went into action. But I think the framework is perfect, and we can apply that. I like to apply it everywhere else too, and that's what we're talking about in all aspects of life. So.
Well, I think you guys are great examples of it's so embodied. Your readiness standard is just part of who you are.
Hmm.
You're there. You're at 80+% year round. And my guess is whenever you spend too much time closer to 100%, your body starts giving you feedback.
Oh yeah.
Either
Yeah.
overtraining or energy levels or something to go, okay, time to dial it back a little bit, rest and recovery mode, active recovery. And
Yeah.
so again, that's another thing I think guys listening to this, listen to your body, but there's a difference between listening to your body and giving yourself some grace and bailing out and not doing the work because it just doesn't feel like you don't feel like doing it today.
Yeah.
There's a nuance between those two things. So, all right, well, awesome. That's 4 out. We're still kind of evolving this, but I think we've got the guts of it to really help guys with the 3 different applications of the model. So that's it.
I got one thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Brock.
So, I mean, picture you listen to this whole podcast and you're still here with us right now. You have 4 months left in the year, right? Starting next Monday, I believe is the first, right? You have 4 months. I mean, so what is it for you that would like change anything in your health or fitness or nutrition or mindset or sleep that you could focus on for 4 months? What could you commit to? Starting 4 minutes a day. And then work your way all the way through that. Like it's a perfect time frame to figure out what that is. So what's holding you back? What do you really want to go after?
That's so good, Brock. In the last 4 months of this year, and a lot of guys are, we've got the 15% body fat target, but what if that target was just, 5% from where you are now, or 10%, not 15, but get to 20. It's a perfect time for that.
That's a great invitation. I'm glad you brought that up, Brian. That's a perfect way to end this. So,
Yeah.
chances are, if you're listening to this, there's something you can apply this to. It doesn't have to be world-changing, life-changing. It could be something small. Chances are, if you start with something small, it's going to lead to something big.
Better that way anyway.
The key is just start. Take an action today. Take 4 minutes right now after this podcast is done. Put pen to paper and figure something out and see where it leads you. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for tuning in, Argent Alpha Unscripted. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks, Clint. Thanks, Brock. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Chad.
See you guys.
See you guys.